So this is going to be kind of it's March 15th, Friday. This is going to be an interesting video for me to make. I don't know how anybody else is going to take it. And the reason it's interesting is it's not a completed area of realization. Generally, when I meditate or I'm on my path, let's say, in fact, let me just bring these up real quick. How can I do this? There we go. There's the books. I've mentioned these so many times. I've read something in the book Shankara or in the Bhagavad Gita. Maybe it's a year or 2 or 3 years ago. And what'll happen is it doesn't settle in. There isn't a full duplication of what is written. And what'll occur is maybe a year or two later, I'll be meditating on something and I'll gain a new realization where it just becomes you, whatever it is. Sometimes it's something you didn't expect, something just unfolds. But what'll happen is then, or often what will happen is that realization will make clear something in these books. What I mean specifically on that, let me go ahead and take this thing off so it's not. The Four-Immeasurables by the great Buddha. I think this is one of the most powerful teachings, methods, whatever you want to call it. And in it, I brought this up before, the Four-Immeasurables, there's a description where it says all life is interdependent, therefore the happiness of one individual depends upon that of others. That's just the whole concept of all is one, this interdependence. The Buddha taught the Four Immeasurables. Loving kindness, which he basically says, he describes love as being kind, wanting happiness in others. And you can meditate on that. You can just sit there and meditate and think about your family being happy. Think about yourself being happy. Think about others being happy. And keep doing that. Keep putting it there. Try it. Practice it. See how that might apply to you and see how you feel. The next one is, well, here they have it as compassion. I usually see it written as the third one, but having compassion for others. Appreciative joy is a fabulous one. Really wanting joy for others and seeing that because others are experiencing joy, you gain joy. And that'll help. The whole environment gets better and you'll feel better. And you start seeing that whole interdependence and oneness. But then there's the fourth one, which is equanimity. And that's what I'm going to bring up today. I think this is really, really interesting. Now, these four immeasurables will help if you practice them, especially in meditation. I shouldn't say especially in meditation. Practice them, period. But it's a great fun to do it in meditation. And if you do that, you will remove ill will, cruelty, jealousy, clinging, and aversion. So bad emotion within yourself and within others can start to release. I think that's very powerful. It can help you get rid of those things that you're craving, those things that you're afraid of. What it really, in my mind, does is it releases you from the impact of the mind. And while we've talked about this before, so let me just take this off. The thickest component around us, the thickest wavelength, the thickest is the physical universe that we see. We can call it Maya, but it's a bit of a misnomer, but it's out there. And if you look at it, it's so much of it is created and is creating an adverse effect where we crave it. We crave things. And there are things that we've identified with, we've attached to, and as such, we crave. And those things then trap us from finding out from realizing who we really are. And there's another layer that not so much isn't as thick, but it's our mental layer. And all of the images and thoughts and stuff, and a lot of that mental we're not even aware of. It's below our awareness. But those things have a less of a solidity to it. And so we're talking about how to have an equanimity in the midst of all of these forces. And that's what the Four-Immeasurables can teach us, along with so much. I mean, Ramakrishna in the book Ramakrishna and His Disciples, or in the book The Gospel of Ramakrishna, talks about, and does Jesus, talks about pure love and meditating on Jesus or on Ramakrishna or on whatever pure love, pure caringness, kindness. See, these things are very similar, but that's the easiest path to self-realization. And so this whole concept of what is equanimity and how can that be applied is the topic. And I was actually going to label this or title this, "Is Everything Just Stuff?" And so that's what I meant by everything is out there. And here's the mind. There was an interesting yogi once that said, I don't know why everybody's trying to get rid of the mind. It's there as a tool. I thought that was an interesting statement he made. What we don't want to be is identified with or controlled by the mind. It's just a thing. It's just a thing that we can use. The same thing with the physical universe out there. Nobody's saying you shouldn't participate or shouldn't enjoy certain aspects of life. But if we really want eternal joy, I guess, is a way to, what joy really is, or what long-term happiness is, or capital S self-realization really is, we need to deal with being trapped or covered. They talk about the covering. You have the physical universe covering and the mental aspect covering of who we really are. So I thought this equanimity one was really, really interesting. And I wanted to bring it up. Well, let's just do it. There it is. So this is from, at the top here, it's the Four-Immeasurables: Love, Compassion, Joy, and Equanimity. It's from a website called viewonbuddhism.org. It's a great one. Now, I'm bringing all this up again, fully admitting that I'm starting to get realizations. I'm starting to get, oh, now I get what they mean. But I'm not done. And I'm bringing this up because I think it's just really important and powerful, and maybe somebody will benefit then. Again, I don't know who's watching these videos, but maybe they'll like something on this. If somebody asked me what my religion was, I would say all religions. I like them all. But Vedanta Hinduism is the one I love the most. And I also love Lord Buddha and the Four-Immeasurables specifically. So there's many teachings of Buddha that I incorporate. And quite frankly, I don't see these things as different. I just see them as all as one anyway. So let's just take a look at this quote. I think this is really, really wild. And I'm going to read it out loud, admitting again that I don't have full realization at the power of what this means. But I think, as any of you all might look at, boy, if I could achieve that, wow. So equanimity in Buddhism means to have a clear-minded, tranquil state of mind. Wouldn't that be great? To be able to, I had a friend that had a lot of that. He could sit in the middle of a hurricane and, anyway, not being overpowered by delusions, mental dullness, or agitation. You know, it's funny. I could make comments on this. Let me just read it. For example, with equanimity, we do not distinguish between friend, enemy, or stranger, but regard every sentient being as equal. Now you can kind of see, wow, really? When I first read that, is that possible? So they go on, and I kind of left this part of it out because the quote on the website gets pretty lengthy. But they really clarify that their equanimity doesn't mean being indifferent, apathetic, or not caring. So this kind of gets into how life can have harmonics. In other words, there's a very high elevated state called equanimity. But on the flip side, it's like a harmonic. People can be indifferent or apathetic or not caring about anything and go, well, I'm just practicing equanimity. No, no, no. They actually go so far to say that when you're that low into indifference, apathy, that's actually very egotistical. You've become so individuated and egotistical that, yeah, that you're really low. It's called tamas and the gunas, which is another video. But I think this is pretty interesting. It's a very elevated state. So he goes on to say the opposite of equanimity is anxiety, worry, stress, paranoia caused by dividing people into good and bad. Again, I don't have all the realization on all this. It's something that I can intellectually say I get it, but full realization of the power of this, I think it all goes back to all is one. It goes back to that original, where is it? This one, all life is interdependent. The happiness of one individual depends upon that of the others. I think it's just amazingly powerful. And the more one meditates on all of these things, the more we fully realize that truth. Let's just say it that way, the truth in it. And again, I want to emphasize realization, not just theorizing or saying, yeah, I get it. I said that many times 20, 30, and 40 years ago, and now I just go, boy, I didn't get it. And maybe 40 years from now, I'll say, boy, I didn't get it now. So let's continue on with equanimity. Equanimity is an unselfish, detached state of mind which also prevents one from doing negative actions. Really, really amazing. Continuing, it is said that the aware... Now this is it's in that same website, but it's a different quote. It is said that the awareness of Buddha is completely even, like the ocean, taking in equally the joys and sorrows of all people, friends, loved ones, relatives, and those never met. This is the meaning of a statement made by so many of the world's great spiritual leaders or teachers: love your enemy. Now, this is really a wild line, a good one. It doesn't mean love the person you hate. You can't do that. Love those who hate you. That's really amazing. There's also a Gandhi principle. So anyway, I'm just going to leave that there. I think it's incredibly powerful. And, it is interesting. Sometimes when I watch movies, I'll see a truth mentioned, and I always wonder how that came about to the author of the movie. And specifically, yeah, I'll think I'm nutty on this one, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. There's a great book called Shogun, and they have a new series on it, which I'm having great joy watching because I loved the book. I read it some 30 or 40 years ago. They actually pronounce it Shogun in this particular series. But in the episode 4, they called it the Eightfold Fence. Interesting, I don't know if it has to do with, I don't even know the religious heritage of Japan, but in Buddhism, there's what's called the Eightfold Path. And then in the 4th episode, they titled it the Eightfold Fence. And in it, they're talking about how they survived, in essence, the culture of Japan at the time. And this was around 1700, I believe. Maybe it was 1600s. And the culture was very samurai, very controlled. You follow your senior, you do exactly what you're told. If not, you commit seppuku, hara-kiri. There's just a lot of control, and the one character talks about that lifestyle, and what they do is they practice what's called the Eightfold Fence, and that's where life is going on around them, but they learn, and it sounds like a meditation practice, where they learn to find that place where they can find equanimity, where they can find peace and joy. I think that's an amazing statement that they brought it up, and I don't know if the author of this particular series or the book, I don't remember Eightfold Fence in the book, but that was a long, long time ago. But I thought that was really interesting. And again, it's showing the separation of this place. Some people, let's say in all of these religious videos, were talking about finding true self-realization, which will be blissful, loving, caring, and that those coverings out here fade. Some say become almost paper-like, become unimportant. But it's interesting to see that in movies, to see the same thing. So there's, again, the stuff, and then there's the real truth, which is who you really are. And I was going to mention there were two movies. There was Shogun, and then, of course, The Matrix says the same thing. I mean, look what happens in that great series. And it makes me wonder if people love these movies because they have these elements of truth. That, of course, in Matrix, there's the whole idea that there's this fabricated world, which sounds very much like Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, whatever, that these coverings, and we become attached and so involved, so identified with, that we lose track of who we really are. And I think it's fascinating how these truths kind of move through into our popular culture. Yeah. So again, what we're trying to do is gain equanimity, gain that self-realization. And I didn't want to leave it on just here's this definition, do with it what you want. But if we meditate on the four immeasurables or practice the four immeasurables in life, I'm a believer that great things will happen. And I think it's one of the most powerful tools that we have. And as if you've looked at my other videos, I love the four immeasurables and meditating on that. I love the idea of letting go. If things start to percolate up in the mind, let them go, view them, have realization, but don't let go of any attachment. And I love the idea of meditating on what's called sattva, love, caringness, harmony. The great Lord Lakshmi represents all of those factors for me. So that works for me. And I will say something else, and maybe I'll make this another video. There was, and I can't find it, but I know it's in the Shankara book. And that says one of the last obstacles, in fact, this was even brought up in something else, but is that final clinging to life. And that's an amazing, we cling, we hold on to these coverings. And there's times it's not easy to let go of some of those things. But I will say that I find that when I let go, I actually gain them. It's the identification with or attachment to that we're unaware of. That's what gets us. So just because we're letting go doesn't mean we can't enjoy life. So again, I'll say I think these are the greatest tools, the four immeasurables, being sattva, being love, being joy. Yeah. And what'll happen, or what's been happening to me more and more, is letting go, trying not to control everything. This is hard. I'm a householder. I'm taking care of things. But again, if it's compulsive or something that I can't let go of, something that's controlling me and driving me, these are kind of the principles I observe more and more, is letting go of those things I thought I was in control of, or I thought weren't my masters. And these things were affecting me. And but the more they go away, the happier I am. The closer I feel to understanding. And I find that these truths, mainly in Vedanta Hinduism, back to these books, the truths that I've read in these things become more and more apparent. And I'll say it again, these books, I wish I fully got it. I don't know if anybody can fully get it when they first read. I think you just go over it and over it. I don't really read a whole lot anymore. I just meditate, and it's almost like a reverse reading. The truths are borne out, as opposed to having to perfectly understand the book when I read it. I don't think that's possible. I think, well, you know what I think the tools are. I think you practice your four immeasurables in life. You practice caring for others. There's so many words for these things. The Vedanta has the various principles. We just practice these things. And, or the Beatitudes in the Sermon on the Mount, just be a good person and practice your path. I guess that's what an advocate of the most. And I think what happens then is we continue to live in truth. And I'll leave it on the Vedanta principle or word for God, which is Sat Chit Ananda, which is what that basic principle is, which is infinite knowledge, love, and bliss. And so the more we let go of all of the coverings, the more we can find who we really are, Sat Chit Ananda. Okay,